All right, ready for a wild ride.
Always up for an adventure. What are we diving into today?
Today, we're journeying to Asgard. We're tackling Thor and Loki.
The god of thunder and the god of mischief. A tale for the ages.
Exactly. And here's the thing, it's so much more than just a hero and villain story, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It gets deep fast. We're talking psychology, philosophy, even those really human struggles we all face.
Right. And what's wild is that we've got these ancient myths that still resonate so strongly today. Like, they're reflecting stuff we deal with right now.
It's amazing how those stories, those figures, capture something so universal. Thor and Loki, they've been captivating imaginations for centuries. It's not just about their family drama, though that's definitely part of it.
Well, for sure, some serious family drama there.
It's deeper than that. It's a window into the human experience itself, those big universal forces that are always at play, both within us and in the world around us.
Okay, so before we go full deep dive, let's set the scene a bit. Norse mythology. We're dealing with Asgard gods, goddesses, a whole pantheon that's kind of like a family reunion, just with way more epic battles and magical creatures.
And don't forget the mead.
Oh yeah, can't forget the mead.
But you're right to ground us in the setting, because to get Thor and Loki, you got to get their world. And the key thing to remember is that balance. It's huge E in Norse mythology. The gods, they weren't just figures you worshiped from afar, they were forces of nature.
Okay, so like literally forces of nature.
Literally. Thor, for example, he's strength, he's order, he's protection, think thunderstorms, but like personified. That's our guy.
Makes sense. He is the god of thunder, so ultimate good guy, keeping everything in check with his mighty hammer.
You got it. But even forces of nature, well, they're not always sunshine and rainbows, are they? They can be chaotic, unpredictable. And that's where things get really interesting. Because on the flip side, we have Loki.
The god of mischief. Okay, I'm already sensing where this is going. Chaos versus order. The classic showdown.
You're catching on quickly. And it's a dynamic that plays out everywhere, not just in myths. It's like there's a part of us that totally gets Thor's whole gotta keep things in line thing.
Right, rules exist for a reason.
Exactly. But then there's this other side, and that's where Loki comes in. That impulse to shake things up, break free from the mold, and honestly, who hasn't felt that pull at some point?
Oh, 100%. That urge to just say, screw it and dye your hair pink,
Exactly. It's primal. We crave what we crave. So if part of us sees Thor and goes, yep, need that structure, there's another part that sees Loki and is like, freedom, baby, even if it gets a little messy. Because Loki challenges everything. He disrupts the status quo. He's that voice whispering, what if we did it this way instead?
Yeah, he's got that rules were made to be broken vibe, right?
Yeah.
Though maybe with slightly less, world-ending mischief in our day-to-day lives, hopefully.
Right. No need to unleash any fire giants on your boss, no matter how tempting.
Agreed. But that's interesting because it sounds like you're saying Loki's not just straight up evil.
Exactly. The myths we're diving into, they make it clear he's not just some mustache-twirling villain.
Yeah.
Loki craves recognition, belonging. Those are things we can all relate to. He just goes about it in a, shall we say, unconventional way.
So less destroy everything and more just trying to be seen.
More or less. And that's important because it means this isn't a simple good versus evil story. The text paints a much more nuanced picture. It's this constant push and pull between order and chaos. And get this, those forces, they're not just out there in the world, they're within us too. It's this constant dance within ourselves.
Whoa, okay. So we're not just talking about two gods duking it out. We're talking about something way bigger here.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Even though they're seemingly always at odds, these two, they kind of need each other, can't have one without the other. It's this eternal dance between opposing forces. Like they drive each other crazy, but also they make each other whole.
All right, my mind is officially blown. So we've got these two powerful figures, Thor and Loki, each embodying these massive universal forces. But it's not as simple as one being good and the other bad.
Not at all.
It's about this tension, this balance. Okay, I need a minute to process this.
Take your time, it's a lot to unpack. And trust me, it gets even more interesting as we delve deeper.
Okay, so we left off with this idea of Thor and Loki, not just as these separate figures, but as parts of a larger whole. Like, they represent these opposing forces, but those forces are actually interconnected, right?
100%. And, it's interesting because we often picture Thor as this stoic, unyielding force, the big, strong hero, never air out of place. But the texts we're looking at today, they actually paint a slightly different picture.
Oh, really? So Thor is not all thunder and lightning. There's more to him than meets the eye.
Way more. imagine for a second the weight of his responsibility. I mean, he's tasked with keeping the entire cosmos safe, right? Everyone's looking to him, expecting him to keep the chaos at bay. That's a lot of pressure, even for a god.
No kidding. I mean, I get stressed just thinking about my to-do list. I can't imagine having the fate of existence on my shoulders.
Exactly. And the texts actually highlight that burden, that pressure Thor feels. He's got this immense power, no doubt, but that doesn't make him immune to doubt or insecurity. Because strength, real strength, it's not just about how much you can lift or how hard you can hit, it's about facing those internal battles as well.
Whoa, hold on. Are you saying that Thor, Mr. I wield the power of thunder himself, has insecurities? That's kind of blowing my mind a little.
And it's in those moments, those cracks in the heroic facade, where his humanity really shines through. And you know what else is super interesting?
Hit me with it. What makes Thor's story even more complex?
Regret. The source material actually digs into Thor's regrets, which adds a whole other layer to his character. Because he's not perfect, you know? He's made mistakes just like the rest of us. And those mistakes, they weigh on him.
Okay, so this isn't just him messing up a batch of meat or something. What kind of regrets are we talking about? What makes him tick, you know?
Well, one of the biggest things he grapples with is the feeling that his singular focus on maintaining order, on doing what he thought was right, might have blinded him to Loki's needs.
So it's like, even though he's trying to do good to keep things stable, there are unintended consequences.
Exactly. There's even a line in one of the texts that really gets to the heart of this. It says, Thor's hammer, though mighty, could not shatter the silence between them.
Wow, that's heavy.
Right. It suggests that sometimes even upholding what we believe is right, even with the best of intentions, can create distance, can lead to misunderstandings. It's food for thought, you know. Because haven't we all been there at some point? So focused on doing things by the book that we forget to really see the people around us.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes we miss the bigger picture when we're too busy following the rules. Which, you know, brings us back to Loki. Because if Thor's flaw is being too rigid, is Loki's just being too free?
It's not quite that simple. See, the texts paint a more nuanced picture of Loki's chaos. It's not just about wreaking havoc for fun, you know. It's about challenging the norms, exposing hypocrisy, highlighting the absurdity of the world. He's like this catalyst for change, even if it comes in the form of, well, a giant snake or whatever he's conjured up that day.
Okay, so he's the ultimate agent of chaos, but with a side of deep thinking. That tracks, honestly. But how does this all play out in their dynamic then? How does this whole order versus chaos thing actually manifest in their relationship?
It's portrayed as this clash between fundamental forces, a cosmic dance, really. The myths frame their battles as something much bigger than just two brothers duking it out. It's about that tension between control and surrender, structure and freedom, like two sides of the same coin, constantly pushing and pulling at each other.
And don't we all feel that tension in our own lives, right? Like that desire to break free from routine, to shake things up, even if it means maybe stirring up a little chaos. Whether it's finally trying that new restaurant you've been eyeing, or making a big career change, or even just rearranging your furniture on a whim, that urge for something different, it's totally human.
100%. It's that age-old dilemma.
Yeah.
We crave stability and excitement, the comfort of routine, but also the thrill of the unknown. And these myths, they tap into those very real, very human experiences.
So what you're saying is this isn't just some ancient story about a couple of squabbling gods. It's about understanding the complexities within ourselves, right? Recognizing that order and chaos, those things we often see as opposites, they're actually intertwined, part of a larger whole.
You got it. And here's the really mind-blowing part. The myths suggest that it's actually their opposing forces that make them whole. Like Thor, in his quest for order, he needs Loki's chaos to challenge him, to shake things up, to help him see things from a different perspectives, like a cosmic reality check, reminding him that sometimes growth comes from leaning into the discomfort.
So are you saying they're like two sides of the same coin? You can't have one without the other?
Exactly. It's like this intricate dance, this constant push and pull that, while seemingly destructive at times, ultimately leads to growth and balance. They need each other to evolve, to become their fullest selves.
Dude, mind blown. You're making me rethink my entire stance on sibling rivalry. Maybe a little healthy chaos isn't such a bad thing after all. In moderation, of course.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot, that dynamic equilibrium where both forces can coexist. Because it's in that tension, that dance between opposing forces, that true growth and balance can occur.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But if this constant tension between Thor and Loki, this back and forth, if it's actually essential for balance, then how does it all resolve? I mean, surely they can't be at each other's throats for all eternity, right?
Yeah.
Is there any sense of like resolution, reconciliation, anything in these myths? So we've been really digging into this whole Thor and Loki dynamic, right? This push and pull between order and chaos, which honestly feels super relatable, even though we're talking about like gods and mythical realms and all that. But where does it all go from there? Is there like a resolution? Do these two ever figure things out?
Well, that's where the source material gets really interesting, because it does hint at redemption for both of them, but it's not your typical happily ever after scenario.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't be a very satisfying myth if everything just wrapped up in a neat little bow, right?
Yeah.
So what does redemption even look like for these two?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And for Thor, it seems to be about realizing that true strength isn't just about power, but about compassion, about understanding. He needs to see where Loki's coming from, even if he doesn't agree with his methods. There's this one passage that describes it as Thor learning to see the world not just as it should be, but as it is, with all its glorious imperfections.
So basically, Thor's got to loosen up a bit, learn to be a little more empathetic, a little less hammer first, ask questions later.
Pretty much. He has to understand that order without flexibility, it can turn into stagnation. And sometimes a little chaos can lead to unexpected growth. It's all about finding that balance.
Makes sense. And what about Loki then? What's redemption look like for the God of Mischief? Can someone who thrives on chaos ever really find peace, belonging?
That's the core of his journey, isn't it? And the texts offer a surprisingly hopeful perspective. See, it's not about Loki suppressing that chaotic part of himself, but more about learning to channel it in a way that's actually creative rather than destructive.
So instead of burning down the world, maybe he helps to rebuild it.
Exactly. It's about finding purpose, even in a system that doesn't always make sense. It's about recognizing that the parts of ourselves we might see as flaws, as messy or chaotic, they can actually be sources of incredible strength, incredible creativity, if we learn how to work with them, not against them.
Wow. That's actually a really powerful message, and it makes those gods, even with all their power and their flaws, seem a little more human, you know? It's like they mess up, they doubt themselves, but they're capable of growth just like us. But it makes you wonder if this whole cycle of tension and resolution, if that's just how it is for them, does balance ever truly win out? Or is it more about learning to live in that in-between space?
That's a question worth sitting with, right? Because the myths, they don't really give us a straight answer. Maybe it's not about achieving perfect balance, but about the journey itself, that constant ebb and flow between those opposing forces. Maybe that's where life really finds its meaning.
It reminds me of that line from the text we talked about earlier. Thor's hammer, though mighty, could not shatter the silence between them.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's like this reminder that sometimes brute force isn't the answer, that real understanding, it comes from embracing the complexities, the nuances in ourselves and in the world around us.
Exactly. Those seemingly opposite parts of ourselves, they're not something to be afraid of. It's about integration, about recognizing that it's in that dance between order and chaos that we find our fullest expression.
This has been amazing, seriously, so much to think about. Huge thanks to you, expert speaker's name, for walking us through all of this, for shining a light on those often overlooked aspects of these iconic figures.
My pleasure. It's always a blast to dive into these myths, to uncover those timeless truths that still resonate with us today.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights, maybe even inspired a little introspection. Remember, like Thor and Loki, we all contain multitudes. It's in embracing those seemingly opposite forces within us that we unlock our true potential. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of it all.